Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, social media, pop culture, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. If you guys are following this on YouTube and or BitChute, I would encourage you guys to give me a follow there. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, I would encourage you to click on that watermark down there in the bottom right-hand corner to subscribe, along with notifications. That way you guys will know when there is content here on the channel, as well as the Friday Vlogs. This weekend gaming news, of course, the talk has been about the Rytech sniper rifle that was recently introduced into Call of Duty Modern Warfare, as well as Cheshire Park, which I am really starting to enjoy. But if you guys want all the details about that, I do have the community news update up here in the top right-hand corner for you guys to check out. Over the 4th of July weekend, we had additional shootings here in Atlanta. Now, the escalation continues here in the Atlanta area, despite the fact that we're still seeing issues in LA, Seattle, New York, and now here in Atlanta as well. And over the weekend, we saw the tragic death of an 8-year-old girl. As you guys remember, as we have covered here, a lot of this started with the tragic death of George Floyd. Then here in the Atlanta area, it moved on to the tragic death of Rayshard Brooks, which is still being investigated, of course, and still talked about here in the Atlanta area. The Wendy's area is still has protesters there. And over the weekend, the young girl was actually shot in the vicinity, in that area of that Wendy's downtown. So what I wanted to do is I want to take a moment and read from the actual article itself pertaining to this. Now, I also want to mention here before we get into the article that on Sunday, the following day, Sunday evening, there was what has been called a peaceful protest of just a few bad apples that actually attacked the headquarters of public safety in downtown Atlanta, the headquarters for the Georgia State Patrol, where they defaced the front of the building, they broke windows and threw in fireworks. So the escalation and the protesting, and I would just like to say the rioting, is continuing. And of course, the media still covers for these individuals, suggesting that, oh, it's just a few bad apples. Unfortunately, it's not, because this is continuing. The noise was deafening early Sunday morning in Atlanta's historic Sweet Auburn district, where more than 1,000 celebrants took to the streets for fireworks, loud music, and the sound of accelerating car engines and screeching brakes. Now, that has been going on for quite some time. That was going on during the pandemic as well, but it wasn't covered in the media. Groups of individuals out there, doing donuts and just basically drag racing in the Atlanta area during the pandemic. And then gunshots, too many to count. 14 people were taken to the hospital. 2 would die from their injuries, Atlanta police said. It was all part of an intensely violent holiday weekend that left 31 people injured in shootings citywide. 5 deaths were reported, including an 8-year-old girl shot in the back of her mother's car. This type of behavior is unacceptable and cannot be tolerated, City Council President Felicia Moore said. A strong message needs to be sent. A strong message needs to be sent. A strong message. Many messages have been sent. Enough is enough, said Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. And there was a quote from that little girl's father who said, "If Black Lives Matter, you just killed one of their own." And the thing is, I'm just kind of paraphrasing what he says because he's been on conservative TV. I'm actually seeing a lot of the black community on conservative television now because the progressive movement is moving into these particular groups and organizations. Last week, you guys may have seen that several Black Lives Matter leaders stepped down because the progressive movement is taking over everything. We've talked about this for a while. We have mentioned this here on the channel. They are also destroying the Democratic Party. Now, I can't just single out the progressive movement and or just the resistance because we have different types of organizations. And we've talked about how many of these have failed or are failing because of the types of changes, because of what the progressive movement is trying to do. And that is to sow discord, chaos, and tumult within the communities. And we're seeing that right now here in Atlanta. Now, it is very selectively covered. As you guys saw there in Chaz, in Seattle, it was shut down after these very same progressive people that have been protected by the Democrat Party, that have been protected by the left, actually marched on the Democratic mayor's house. You see, when it's coming to their door, we talked about this last week in Winston Churchill's little quote about feeding the crocodile hoping he will eat you last. This has kind of been their approach. Now, in general, the communities want these things to kind of simmer down and go away. Unfortunately, they are not. Now, in the next segment, we're going to talk about an issue that is escalated to a point now to where we can say, hey, have we reached that Civil War point? Is it a cold Civil War? Is it a hot Civil War? Is it a flashpoint? Where are we along this journey? But the thing that I want to emphasize here is, if you've ever noticed, I want you to think about this for a moment. In Seattle, in LA, in New York, and here in Atlanta, have you heard any of these particular officials offer a solution? Yes, talk like we heard from the councilwoman. Yes, talk that we heard from the mayor, appealing to these individuals to settle down, to calm down. But we already know the police, the city officials, the mayor sometimes would rather target an individual business, person, or couple like in Missouri who were revisited, and then try to go after those people to appease the crowd, but it does not appease the crowd. Now, we'll talk about those particular aspects in our next segment, but as far as what's going on here in Atlanta, it's very concerning, and the governor, Brian Kemp, has said he's going to send in the National Guard, which irritated the mayor, Keisha Bottoms, who this weekend just signed an executive order that masks should be worn within the city proper and no gatherings of over 10 people. So here we have an individual who's trying to offer aspects of a solution, but not a solution to what is really occurring within the city of Atlanta, the serious shootings and events that are taking place. So when Brian Kemp wants to try to take action, then of course she gets upset and irritated, but she isn't offering any solutions. However, I will leave links to those reports below this video. All right, guys, I want to go straight into this segment with an article from this particular topic that we're going to discuss here in just a moment. Law enforcement officials in California charged a man and a woman with a hate crime on Tuesday for allegedly painting over a Black Lives Matter mural that was painted on a public street. The Contra Costa County District's Attorney Office announced that Nicole Anderson, 42, and David Nelson, 53, were being charged with 3 misdemeanor counts, including a hate crime for the incident which allegedly happened on Saturday. On July 1st, a local Martinez, I think it's pronounced Martinez or it's Martinez, resident applied for a permit to paint a Black Lives Matter temporary mural in downtown Martinez in front of the Wakefield Taylor Courthouse. The Contra Costa County District Attorney's Office said in a statement, the permit was approved by the city of Martinez, or Martinez, I think it's Martinez, and the painting was done on July the 4th. So, the city offered a public platform for individuals to express their freedom of speech. How many times have we heard individuals talk about separation of church and state? Now, if you're not familiar with the separation of church and state, and I would argue that many people aren't aware of separation of church and state, it is actually a sentence that was in a letter by Thomas Jefferson to the Dansbury Baptist Church. It is not in the Constitution. It is not in the Bill of Rights, yet it is waved around as though it is some form of law or policy that is to be exercised by the United States. And in reality, what they are talking about is the First Amendment, where the government cannot recognize any one organization and or a religion, right? So here we have a city who did offer permission for these individuals to paint Black Lives Matter on a street. So now you have turned that into a public forum. That is now a platform from which to express speech, and not just selective speech by Black Lives Matter, but for all speech. So now you have 2 individuals who said, okay, well, if the city is going to allow this to happen, then we will go and express our speech, which is essentially the process of having a platform where free speech is expressed. Now, as you guys know, for the last 2 months, if not longer, statues have been torn down, buildings have been defaced, businesses have been burned down. Where's the outrage over that? Where is the particular hate speech? Where is the particular criticism of all this activity? As we talked about last week, these groups and organizations did go to their city council members, as these people did, and got their permit for Black Lives Matter. They go and they request the city council, their mayors, their governors, the individuals within the community to appeal for votes on whether or not a statute or policy or law should be changed. And what happens is they get it, it's voted on, and they don't win, and then they complain that the system is broken. Well, if you want an example of a manipulated system, this is what we have right here. Now, I have no problem with these individuals going through the process of getting permission to paint the street. But this action illustrates to anyone who is familiar with the way free speech works is now you've turned that area into a free speech zone, as it were. It is a free speech platform. And so then you have to allow for others to speak as well, because the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and our laws in this country are supposed to protect everyone equally. And as we just discussed about the statues, individuals who are not happy with outcomes want to take things into their own hands. The 2016 election, when it comes to policies where the Supreme Court has to be involved, these individuals aren't happy with an outcome that was done through a legislative, legal process that we have here in our country when we exercise democracy. There's a reason why we have the Electoral College, so that it doesn't come down to popular vote. Because many of these people complain about popular vote when it came to the 2016 election, but there's a reason we have an Electoral College. There's a reason why we've had it for the last 233 years, and that is so particular states like California and Texas and Florida and big cities like New York can't control the entire outcome of an election. That would create instability within our country if just 2 or 3 states or 1 or 2 cities are able to control an election. There's a reason why we have an Electoral College. Now, in these particular communities, it does sometimes come down to a popular vote. And then that in itself is also another example of individuals who have had a choice, have made a choice, and these individuals feel that the system is broken when it doesn't work to their advantage. So what do? They take matters into their own hands. That's what we saw with this couple here. They did the same thing. If the street is going to be turned into a public forum, if this is now going to be a free speech zone, as it were, even if it's temporary, right? In other words, you are giving kind of an exclusive permission for a particular group. And how often do we hear these individuals, or individuals in general, talk about having particular rights? We have talked about this before. In reality, it doesn't really come down to rights, as it were. If your rights are being violated, if your constitutional rights are being violated, if the law is being broken, then you need to go to the authorities, to the proper individuals, and consult with those individuals and let them know. Taking matters into your own hands is not the way to handle these situations. And that's what we're seeing from this progressive movement. And the thing is, right now, as I made this recording, I heard Bernie Sanders quote or say that if Joe Biden wins, he'll be the most progressive president in our country. I agree with what he's saying from the political perspective, but the reality is Joe Biden will be the president who will be the most manipulated by a progressive movement, because that is what is going on right now. You don't hear about it within the Democratic Party because the media doesn't talk about it. The Democrats don't talk about it, but they have their own set of problems. Now, if you're keeping up with this, AOC did win her primary a few weeks ago. Now, of course, the Democrats have said that they were going to move the districts around to maybe get her unseated from that position. Now, of course, she used a method called primarying to get that position to begin with, which she was always saying was not legitimate, or people complained to her about it not being legitimate. Now, it is a district of over 700,000 people, and she got about 110,000 votes, so it wasn't like a major majority, though she does have millions of followers on Twitter. Those people, of course, don't live within her district. But this progressive movement has moved to this point to where regular citizens are now coming out, you know? It's kind of a double standard when you're sitting there and allowing these people to tear down statues and just go in and just wreak havoc and take over portions of cities. And now you have 2 people that just want to take matters into their own hands too. Now, you guys may recall the individual that came out there in Chaz and started breaking down the barriers and started overturning tables and stuff, and he was considered a bit of a hero there within social media and even within, I guess you could say, just within the general populace of America. But guys, I'm telling you, and we have talked about this here on the channel for quite some time, have we reached that Civil War point? Is it a cold Civil War? Is it a flashpoint Civil War? We see it constantly. It is an intentional sowing of tumult and chaos during this time period where an election is just around the corner. And it's going to be very interesting to see when people are alone in that booth what decisions they're going to make. But in this particular incident in California, are we going to see the rise of Americans say enough is enough? Very much like we saw after the mayor in Seattle brought in the police to shut down Chaz. We're hearing a lot from the community, a lot from business people that felt that they were hijacked, They felt that they were actually oppressed by a group of individuals who said they were fighting oppression. The same group of people who wanted to defund police created their own security force, which created all the shootings in Chaz itself. Just like we're seeing in Atlanta in the segment we just talked about. The shootings are continuing. The tumult is continuing. The chaos is continuing, and we're not hearing solutions. President Trump is a solution president. I know many people disagree with him, but he is result-oriented. We see substantive, tangible results from what he's been able to achieve and accomplish. But nonetheless, guys, here we are. We've talked about this for 2.5 years. Now we're seeing it unfold as we described. I will leave links to the articles below this video. You guys can check them out for yourself. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. I want to thank all of you guys for your continued participation here on the channel, and for all of you who have been around for the last 2.5 years. If you are following on BitChute and or DTube, I would ask you guys to give me a follow there as well. And for all of you here on YouTube, that would be the channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe, along with clicking those notifications. That way you guys will know when there is content here on the channel, as well as the Friday vlog. And I'll see you guys right there behind the camera next week.